authoritarian government were to dissolve, what would happen to these companies like the NFL or baseball? Or how would that work? Like how would that look like?
You're not going to have your guys that are playing for $50 million a year anymore. I mean, that's
yeah. I'm just that would definitely. I think a lot of people. I mean, I would probably doubt that the guy down in Mississippi in the trailer probably thought of that. Like, oh no, what would happen to NFL?
Think of Tesla. Tesla has almost all their major stuff down in Texas right now. All right, we'll get into some.
That's why I think it would be
possible futures. America breaks up. Either if we break up in a civil war, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what companies are running at the point where we break up in a civil war. There's going to be so much destruction to all the infrastructure. The first thing that's going to go is infrastructure. Next thing that's going to go are factories. And the third thing that's going to go is, people. Well, actually, people are going to go around the same time. But the economy is going to be completely, utterly destroyed. So taking that out, it doesn't matter. NFL is not going to matter in that kind of scenario because their stadiums are going to be used as battlegrounds. If we break up amicably, and amicably just means we're not in a war. I mean, we may, you can't tell me Texas and California aren't going to be flipping each other the bird as they walk out the door. But assume you end up with a California, and we'll just deal with California and Texas. California, Washington State, and Oregon all unify, and Texas, and we'll say Texas takes Oklahoma
and New Mexico.
They want New Mexico. I don't know if New Mexico would do it. New Mexico might try. It all depends, I think, how Arizona would go. If Arizona went towards California, I think New Mexico would be able to sneak in with over there. But I don't know. New Mexico really doesn't really want to go to, from what I understand. Anyway, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. We'll say that is another block. Tesla is pretty much HQ'd out of Texas. Like all their stuff is out of Texas. They're building. Blah, 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 blah. All right. Who are they going to sell to? Because then you're going to have like a New England block. You're going to have like a Middle East block. You're going to have maybe a Deep South block, which may or may not be with Texas and that group. You can't tell me that the Midwest is going to go, hey, you know what? We want to subjugate ourselves to Texas. So they may split off and do their own thing. You're going to have about like 4 or 5 different sub-nations that are created. Do they separate into a confederacy where we all agree to a defense pact, but we are all separate nations, kind of like the European Union in a way? If that's the case, then there would be arguably free trade across the borders, or would there be tariffs going across the borders? Would Texas vehicles that are manufactured in Texas have to still live up to California regulations? Corporations don't want this. There's way too much unknown. The only people who really want that kind of separation are probably going to be like oil barons in Texas, because they know that they are bringing in so much damn money that they can afford, and they're not dependent upon the rest of the American economy. They can sell it overseas. So NFL, it might not really be impacted. Baseball may not really be impacted because they would just have to determine, they would have to set up. I mean, we play baseball in Canada, so we already play across the border. Hockey, we play across the border. So it can be done. I think the bigger thing is going to be how does it fall apart, and does it fall apart as a confederacy? Does it fall apart as nations who are not aligned? So you take something like Brexit, where the UK no longer has the same rights in the EU that it used to, and now they have to negotiate their rates separate. I could see that happening more than I could see a confederacy occurring. But there is, so you guys have heard about the independence movement for, I think it's Western Oregon or Eastern Oregon.
Yeah, and then there's like 5 different between Northern California and Oregon. There's like 5 different states they want to split up.
For Oregon, there's a push by, I think it's Wyoming, where they want to absorb those counties, or the counties want to be absorbed by Wyoming. And there was a great article where they were talking about how difficult it actually would be, because it's not just, hey, we want to go there. There's all the interlacing land rights and property rights, and it's not just about the people who want to go. It's also about the people who don't want to go. It's about the administration of all the public works that go into those areas, and how are those going to be administered. There's way more that goes into it than just, hey, we're going to leave. And that same problem is a microcosm of what we would be dealing with as if we split as a nation. As a perfect example for Maine and Virginia, or Maryland and Virginia, the Potomac River, which is what most of the water for the area, or a fair amount of the water for the area that people drink, comes from, is the Potomac and its subsidiaries, or tributaries. Virginia does not own the Potomac River. Like, normally you think that the rights go right down the channel, right down the middle of the channel. Virginia owns no rights to the Potomac River. All of that water is Maryland water. So Virginia can only draw off the tributaries that are coming from going or feeding into the Potomac. They cannot draw water directly from the Potomac, and Maryland can stop them from doing so. All right, well, let's say Maryland decides to go with the Mid-Atlantic country, and Virginia decides to go with the South Atlantic country. That dividing line is there. That is a legal line that has been drawn in the sand, that Maryland has every right to fight back over and go to war over with Virginia if Virginia violates it. And Maryland has taken Virginia to court many a time on it. The Portsmouth Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It's not actually in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, even though it's called the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. It's in Kittery, Maine, and it is part of Maine. So who owns that? Like, that is a prized piece of property, but you can only get to it from Kittery, Maine. And those kind of things are, we think it'll be easy, but those are the things that are going to cause fights. Those are the things that are going to cause bloodshed. Because at the end of the day, if Virginia wants that water, especially for all the freaking server farms they're putting in here, that they're chomping down as much water and electricity as they can up here, that's going to be a battle that occurs. It is going to end up happening.
I was listening to a podcast where they were talking about something similar, and they were saying like how in the Midwest it'll probably be like Detroit, Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul, maybe parts of Ohio and Indiana, all working together as a coalition. So that would probably be a country. You include all.
I could see Maine down to going right down the front side of the Appalachians, everything like on the front side of the Appalachians, all the way down to probably DC, staying as one unit, one polity. I could see everything coastal from like North Carolina all the way down to probably Virginia down to Georgia, kind of sticking together. Georgia's kind of a iffy one, so maybe Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Kentucky, and the southern parts of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, all of that I could see sticking together. Everything north of that staying together as well. as I said, I could see Texas grabbing Arkansas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma. Whether or not they can expand that coalition, because they are going to be an abusive force, kind of like New York is going to be an abusive force in the north. Texas would be an abusive force because they have so much strength of taking over. That's why I kind of don't think Georgia would go for it. And Alabama and Mississippi might try and go with Georgia instead of being bullied around by Texas. It all depends on ideology, I think. Florida could theoretically split off on its own. Do they really need anybody else? California could go by themselves. I think Washington and Oregon would probably loop in with them, and then you get in this, and Nevada would probably go with them as well. Utah, you get into a weird spot. Arizona and New Mexico. Arizona, I think, would probably go towards California. I think there's too many economic ties there.
I could see Mobile County and Baldwin County getting swallowed up by Florida.
The panhandle of Florida and the Gulf Coast. I mean, that's all kind of
jutted out a little more west.
All the way past, I'd say all the way until you get to the Louisiana border.
Yeah.
Pretty much everything from Diamond Head, Mississippi, all the way over to Tallahassee is basically one big long stretch of white trash.
Wow, went right there. I need to bleep that one out. See, I think that would actually more likely go. You take that dividing line right down from Georgia, between Georgia and Alabama. I think you take that line right down, right into Florida all the way. I think that all goes to Alabama. Yeah. I think Florida loses that section. The part that I think is Florida is going to be from Miami all the way up to the border.
Is take basically Tallahassee, Panama City, everything west of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a different culture than the rest of Florida.
Yeah, because everything east of Tallahassee, that's like a whole different barrel of monkeys. I remember because I spent like 3 years of my childhood down in Central Florida. I remember how it was like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, back when he was raised by jaguars in the swamps of.
So since we're talking about, Dee, you mentioned about different coalitions going on in the Great Lakes area. The big question becomes, who's going to control the waterway that leads into the Great Lakes? Because that's the St. Lawrence River, and you've got Canada on one side of it.
And you know what? To be honest with you,
that kind of goes back to the Strait of Hormuz talk earlier.
That's what I'm saying. And with our actions on the world stage, it would not surprise me if Canada would have a stronger legal argument than the United States in terms of who controls those waterways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think that one's going to be a battle. I think you guys are missing the bigger battle. And this is part of the reason why I think Texas grabs Louisiana, the Mississippi River. And it's the control of the Mississippi all the way up. So once you leave Arkansas, you have Missouri and Kentucky and Tennessee on the other side of the river. You then get up into all the hinterland, all the interior part of, trade from Pittsburgh is heading down that direction. There's a lot of, and having control of the mouth of the Mississippi would be like a huge deal. And it's not just those two waterways. You also have to look, I didn't realize how big of a port Charleston Harbor was, but Charleston Harbor is one of the deeper ports. You have New York Harbor, you have Baltimore Harbor, California. All the ones on the West Coast are going to be pretty easy because it's three states you have to deal with. But the ports on the Southeast, they're not necessarily the best ports. A lot of them are silt covered. How many times do they have to dredge out Mobile Bay?
Yeah.
It's a good protected harbor, but it's very shallow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the economic, man, this is turning into a great little mind game of what the hell happens. Because, economically, does the situation change based on what harbors are available and where you can build? one of the things that they could do actually in off of Texas or in that area is they could build a deep water harbor. It'd be expensive, but it might be worth them to do it. Build a deep water harbor to bring in those container ships that we can't. So there's a size of container ship that the U.S. cannot have. We have no docking facilities that can manage them. They are so big that we can't do it. And we don't have the harbor. None of our harbors are engineered to handle it. So we don't get those cargo ships. They all go to Europe. They all go somewhere else. They don't come to us. So China is not loading up the big boys and bringing them here. They're loading up what are now the small boys who used to be the big boys. Who builds that harbor space first and becomes that major hub transport into the U.S. or what's left of the U.S. and who has the harbor space to do it? As I said, I didn't realize how good of a harbor Charleston was, but apparently it's a really good harbor. So, I mean, theoretically, you could have it there. I mean, you don't think the military is going to let loose on Norfolk on that end of it. That's going to be whoever ends up holding that is going to keep that as a Navy monstrosity for their defense. I don't know. My God, this went way off the reservation into cutting up the U.S., man.
You could probably take the whole bit that we just like talked about, and you could probably just give that like a little mini-sode.
Yeah. Holy crap, man!
Just take that whole swath out.
Probably a good piece for us to kind of close out on, because I mean that's
about as depressing as it can get. Yeah. A bunch of old men thinking about how we're going to cut up.
It makes me think of that old board game, Fortress America. I used to play where America was already subdivided into different sections, and you were different nations trying to invade it.
You know, the funny thing is, I was actually thinking of Shadowrun, because the way America breaks up over time. Now, admittedly, it's based on like magic and all that kind of junk, but the way it breaks up and the cultural break of where different groupings would identify. And
I completely understand, because like I think that's the reason why I've always been drawn to games like Shadowrun and Cyberpunk, because of that element of the United States fractures, different, regions of the, that kind of thing. I was always like, man, that's kind of a distinct possibility. And yeah, it is a possibility, so it's
science fiction before, but now we're like,
kind of makes us a little nervous.
Well, and the funny thing is, like, you look at something like Neuromancer or any of Gibson's stuff. I mean, I haven't read a whole lot of his stuff, but I mean, you look at anything in the cyberpunk genre, and it feels very close to us being in a cyberpunk reality. We haven't developed all the technologies yet, or haven't refined.
We're already in it. I would argue we're already in it. High tech, low life.
The AI revolution has the probability of us landing in that, depending on how it goes. If we continue on this course of replacing people and putting people out of work without finding new ways of allocating those people to work, we are going to end up with we're going to be tending towards anarchy versus corporate takeover, which corporate takeover really demands the people to be under some sort of control, economic or whatever else. If they continue putting people out of work, we're going towards anarchy. We're not going towards a corporate takeover. So that AI game, they may be setting themselves up for a bad run, and we as the people for a bad run. I don't know. I say interesting. I don't know if I necessarily want to be here to see how interesting it is. Sometimes you just kind of go, yeah, I could pass on having to worry about that particular problem. So,
Well, this has been a good group therapy session.
yes, I got invaded, by the way.
All right, folks, you can find us on our socials at Wacky Studios, but more importantly, check out our YouTube channel. That's where, if I don't understand why you would, but if you really like looking at us, that's where you can look at us every week and hit the subscribe button. Substack at wackystudios.substack.com. I'm going to go ahead and put out there, if you'd like to contact me and give your thoughts, whether you like us or whether you hate us or whatever, you can find me on Blue Sky at Squid Adrift. Other than that, I don't have anything. What do you got? What about you guys?
AntWackyStudios@gmail.com. That's our primary email.
Yep. Yeah. Besides that, and what we got going on Substack, podcasts. If you'd rather listen to us and see us, as Dee said, I don't know. I'd rather listen to me than see me.
I concur.
I see myself all the time.
Check us out on Spotify, Overcast, and Apple. That's where we usually hang out on those mediums.
We are debating on trying to get some T-shirts going, if not for anybody else, just for ourselves. So maybe keep an eye out for that as a future endeavor. You can have our little ant buddy wandering around with you.
We can get some big, woolly Russian caps or something. Say spasiba.
Are we preparing for the Russian takeover of America? Are
yeah.
we in? What was the movie? Red Dawn. Oh no!
I think more spies like us.
Wolverine's up into the mountains. We gotta go.
I think we should all grab those woolly hats and wear them and look like Nikolai Volkov, Boris Zukov, and Nikita Krylov.
Oh, yeah. Nice. So for our next episode, we are going to act like we are Russian communists in the 1940s.
Now all our Russian viewers freaking hate us now. Sorry, guys.
Or if they're pro-Soviet, they're laughing at us and going, "Oh yeah, try that, Americans!" Like you guys have any clue what the hell it was like. Anyway,
all right. Close this.
Later, folks.